Welcome everyone to the 2021 Cheltenham Festival preview for Sporting Index, and I'm delighted to be joined by a superb panel, including one of the most successful jockeys ever in the history of the Cheltenham Festival. 43 wins. I think it was 5 last year in his final Cheltenham Festival. One of the best riders that we've ever seen, Barry Geraghty, providing more analysis for us tonight. I can't quite get the same build-up as a Barry Geraghty, but he's pretty good at what he does. It's Neil Channick. Neil, do I call you a broadcaster, analyst, punter? What do you reckon?
Degenerate. I for a second there, I was thinking, I'm sure I haven't ridden that many winners. And then I realised you weren't talking about me.
And finally, the chief of Sporting Index, Carl Sonte. Thank you very much for being with us. And I'm going to start with you, Chief, because there are a few attempters for potential clients of Sporting Index that perhaps we ought to point out.
Yeah, so I'll mention that we've got a couple of new client offers. We obviously offer spread betting and fixed odds at Sporting Index. And for new spread betting clients, we've got an offer that will give you £50 of promo cash to spread bet with. And you can keep what you win. Any losses over £50 are your liability. Losses can exceed your deposit, obviously, with spread betting. Fixed odds, we're giving every new client a £25 fixed odds free bet. All new clients are eligible, and to qualify, all you need to do is simply deposit and place a minimum of 5 times £5 bets on individual sports at market odds of 1 to 2 or greater. And once the 5th bet settles, we'll give you a £25 free bet. Just remember, bet responsibly, and it's 18 plus. There's going to be loads of trading offers on the day. At the moment, we've got a couple just to tempt people in. The first is Epitant to win the champion hurdle and Champ to win the Gold Cup, 25 to 1. And we've also got Sire de Burley to place in the Stales hurdle at 6 to 4. One other thing I'd like to mention is that we're going to be running a competition on social media this weekend. I think it's going to be released on Sunday, and it's to win Barry's breeches from last year that he wore on the winning champion hurdler Epitant. The competition will go live on our social media on our website at some stage on Sunday. So look out for that.
Well, the question is just how many breeches did Barry Geraghty ride when he won on Epitant? Because he's been handing them out left, right and centre in the lead up to this year's festival. But nonetheless, Barry, you got so many winning breeches from last year, you surely got enough to hand out. Let's get stuck into this year's Cheltenham Festival preview. And it starts off almost traditionally with a Willie Mullins shorty in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. He's won the race 6 times before, and it looks as if he's got a very good chance of winning it again. Barry, how strong is Appreciated's chance?
I think he's a very good horse, and he's the best horse in the race, but his form is on soft to heavy ground the last day. And to me, he looks like a horse who will make a lovely stay and chaser in time. And if he was mine, I'd be lining him up on the Ballymore. And for me, he'd be nailed on to win that. So I think he's vulnerable. And possibly Bally Adam, who maybe the prep mightn't be ideal, but the switch to Henry de Bromwell is just a change of yard. You don't know, and it's hard to quantify the effect that's going to have on his performance. It mightn't affect him at all negatively, but I think Bally Adam and Soaring Glory are the 2 horses with pace that could threaten him. The old course in Cheltenham, very sharp, very quick. You need a lot of pace to hold your position comfortably down into the straight and quicken again in the straight. So I just have my doubts about Appreciated on good soft ground over 2 mile on the old course. So I think I'd be taking him on. He is the best horse in the race, but I think conditions are going to be slightly against him, and Soaring Glory or Bally Adam could be good each way of value.
Okay, good alternative there. Neil, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, I think Barry's right. We've still got 5 or 6 days to go, and it has been raining there a bit today, but I can't see that they're going to have colossal amounts of rain such that the going's going to be anything softer than good to soft. And I think that is going to be the problem for Appreciated. The Supreme is funny, isn't it? Because that and the race on the Wednesday, people tend to think that on the Wednesday you need to have a horse that stays a bit, whereas actually a kind of speed horse that can do well in that. Whereas the Supreme, they go at such a pace. I think it's an advantage to be able to stay well, but I kind of feel like on this slightly faster ground, you've got to be against Appreciated. But I have listened to a few Cheltenham previews, and lots of people saying, "Oh yeah, I want to be against Appreciate It," and then the contenders keep dropping out. And I remember in Ireland, the horse was suddenly 1-3. I think it had been 4-6 in the morning, and suddenly it was 1-3, and people seemed to think it was a certainty. And obviously, it was running against quite a lot of horses from its own stable, and possibly at the time there was a couple of Gordon Elliott horses in the race, and that stable had been a little bit out of form at that time. But I saw in Glory, I think the owner or the trainer came out and said possibly that the owner doesn't really want to run at Cheltenham. So I don't know. I wouldn't really be rushing to lay Appreciate It, because I feel like probably it's going to shorten up a fair bit, but I don't really want to be with it. I do quite like the shout of Ballyadam each way, though. I think that's quite solid. I think that will like the drying ground. We don't really know about the having to switch stables, what effect that will have, but I'm going to just hope that doesn't have a bad effect. I think that will be my bet, probably. I don't know, maybe at a slightly bigger price. Yeah, there's a few in there, isn't there? I could possibly make an argument for where is it? I've lost it for a second. Sorry.
Give us a clue.
Irascible. That was the one. Irascible each way. I think that one's definitely going to go for the Supreme, as far as I know. And I thought that might be a possible alternative at a bigger price. But I think my main bet will be Ballyadam each way.
Yeah, I think I see what Barry's saying about Appreciate It and the ground, and I get it, because obviously he's been so impressive with a lot of cut in the ground. But the way I always see Cheltenham is that if you're going to get cut in the ground, the ground's going to be easiest for the very first race on the first day. That's how I generally see the Cheltenham Festival panning out. That's why I like Appreciate It, and I think he's been such a standout performer so far. And he looks, I agree as well, I think he is a chaser in the making, but I also think he looks like he'll be a hard horse to pass. Just a brief word on the market, Carl, because obviously it's the opening race of the day. Everyone wants to get off on the front foot. Neil's talked about what price this horse might go off. What do you reckon with Appreciated's SP on the day?
I was a bit worried when Neil and Barry wanted to be against it. It might go off a bit bigger. We want to lay the favourite always in the Supreme Novices and get off to a good start at Cheltenham. So I was fearing it was going to go off. But I think Neil's right, and one or two will drop out here. And just the way the market always goes at Cheltenham, the Mullins good thing does get hammered, doesn't it? And I could see this going off even money.
Okay.
Well, the one other thing I think is with Metier, the current second favourite. Yeah. That's another horse that really wants soft ground, and also from a stable that's not really been having a brilliant season. I could see that being a drifter as well. I think the favourite will be short enough, closer to evens than it is now.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's move on. So we've got a couple. Well, I certainly like Appreciate, but a couple of alternatives against him. Ballyadam being one of them for the panel. Carl, just a brief word talking about shorties on the next race that we'll talk about, the Arkle, because Shishkin has been a shorty for this race for a very long time. However, there are a couple of decent alternatives to him if you're looking for horses to take him on. So what does the market say there?
Well, obviously Shishkin's 10-11, but there are horses to take him on with. And we've actually been laying All Mankind from all sorts of prices down from 33s this season. And actually the owner sent me a video of his final piece of work today, and it's quite scary, actually, from our point of view. But there's plenty of horses to take him on with. But Shishkin, though, is a fairly solid 10-11 shot, and I cannot see that drifting any further. I think last year he was a drifter, wasn't he, in the Supreme Novices, but ever since that day, he's barely put a foot wrong.
Barry, you know that boring old question that we often say to jockeys, just retired jockeys, said, "Oh, would you love to come back and ride a horse?" Surely, given the old Sprinter Sacra history and what Nicky said about this horse, this is the sort of horse that if you do have a wistful moment, he might be the one that you'd miss.
Actually, no, it's an Argamine, and I had the pleasure of sitting on an Argamine in Willie's a few weeks ago, and he's gorgeous and he's big. The couple of things that surprised me about him was, one, how relaxed he is. So if All Mankind tears off in front, I don't think an Argamine is going to be too bothered with that, and I think he's going to travel away. He jumps really well. He just has a little bit more size and scope for me than Shishkin. I think Shishkin is a very good horse, and I think they're two very good horses, both Shishkin and an Argamine. But the values in an argument at 2-1. I don't think Shishkin can be that far ahead of him if he is at all. I think they're two proper horses with big futures. So for me, an argument, I think he just has a bit more size, a bit more scope. He also, riding him at home, he was ducking, he was whinnying, he was bucking, he was messing. And he's a horse who's only had 1 run over hurdles, and he's had, I think, 4 runs over fences now. But he hasn't a massive amount of experience. That I think there's improvement in him, and there's improvement, I think, from what we saw at the Dublin Racing Festival. So he's a horse who really excites me for the future, but it's a very strong race. As regards All Mankind, he needs to jump an awful lot better than he did in Warwick. But I couldn't have him at the level of the top 2. And I think Captain Guinness could be one for an each way play, but you have a tight enough market when you have 2 hot pots who I think are going to be first and second, so you reduces your options on places. But I think Captain Guinness could run well on the drying ground. And just going back to the drying ground, I spoke to Simon Claes on Sunday, and he calls it good to soft all over. He was predicting 15 to 20 mil of rain through this week coming, so he expects it to be good to soft for the meeting with no anticipation of water at all.
Good info, Barry. Just on the Arkle, Neil, what is exciting for normal people like me coming in from a punter's view is the fact that all 3 trainers of the top 3 horses seem to have unshakable faith in, Shishkin, Energumen, and obviously All Mankind, which makes it an exciting spectacle.
It's definitely. I mean, obviously, the Arkle's always an exciting race just because they go so fast. I'm just looking back, you can remember some great races in the past. For me, it's very exciting because, I like a nice dirty each way bit. And that's the thing I'm most excited about. I'm slightly disappointed, obviously. I know it's a global pandemic and it's a very sad situation, but not having the betting shops open so that I can really punish the bookmakers this week on this race particularly, because we had a declaration today. There's 12 left in the race. I can see at least 5 of those going off for handicaps. And I think this will be a very small field. There's only 5 horses under 100 to 1 in the market at the moment. So, if you have an anti-post bet, you get the place terms at the time that you do the bet. So, we get 3 places. And then if there is just 5 or 6 runners on the day, we're still getting 3 places. So that's really attractive to me. I am disgusting, I know. Energumen, I think, if this was on slightly softer ground, I would make Energumen a really good bet. In fact, I would say it should almost be favourite, really. But I think, again, we're going to say that throughout the meeting. We've had a very wet winter, and now we're going to be running on spring ground, and that might help the bookmakers a little bit this week. So I'm probably against Energumen just for that reason, really. All Mankind I have to be against because of his jumping, and I think there might be a bit of a pace duel between the 2 of them. And so I'm going to bet Captain Guinness each way. I think he can come through late and pick up a place. He was beaten. He was quite well beaten by Energumen 2 runs ago, and then he fell last time out. But the trainer seems quite confident. He definitely liked the better ground. And I think it's a really good each way bet. And I'm going to get stuck into that one.
All right. And I say this with the greatest respect, but you are a dirty man. But I like Shishkin. I've loved what I've seen about him. Everything that he's done so far suggests there's more in the tank. I don't have as much confidence as his price suggests, because I am worried about how good Energumen is, and indeed the possibility of what would happen if All Mankind and he get away, and whether Shishkin's going to be close enough to them. It's fascinating, but that's how I'm viewing it for the moment. We'll move on and talk about the Ultima, which is the first handicap of the week. So, Neil, I know you're buzzing about the handicaps. I'm going to let you open the batting on this one.
I am buzzing about the handicaps. I'm always buzzing about the handicaps. I'm gutted that they've taken out the novice handicap on day one, because that one always had 20 runners. It was brilliant for a quarter first 4 betting. This one normally gets 24 runners, so it's not quite so good for your quarter first 4, but it's still pretty decent. I'm having a real quandary now, though, because this horse of Kim Bailey's Happy-Go-Lucky, I kind of thought, I quite like the look of that. I saw a couple of people talking about it about 10 days ago. Didn't do anything about getting a bet on at this early stage. The weights came out. People seemed quite confident. suddenly has gone from 14s into 6s. And I've seen this movie before, actually, in the Ultima. This seems to happen quite often. There was a horse a few years ago of Nick Williams's that it was just the one that everybody wanted to be on. And it's 1 minute it was 7-1, the next minute it was 7-2. And people were still saying at 7-2 exactly the same things that they were saying at 7-1 when they were getting half the price. And I feel like I'm a little bit in the same way with this Happy Go. I do like it, and I'm probably going to bet it. But as I'm doing it, I'll be slightly kicking myself that I didn't just get my bum off the seat and get some of the bigger prices last week. I don't know. I mean, there was a couple of others I sort of liked in it. I thought Lieutenant Rocco. I mean, I'm not doing great here because it's a 24-runner race, and I've mentioned basically the two favourites. But they're not even money favourites. I do think that's quite solid as well. I feel like on the day I'm going to do more work on it. But if you force me to have a bet right now, I think it'll probably be happy-go-lucky. But part of me will just slightly be upset with myself.
Barry, help him out. Don't help him feel better about himself. What do you like?
I've been watching Far Class in handicaps in Leopardstown at Christmas and in the Dublin Racing Festival, and I thought the last day the step up and trip is what he wants. So to me, he's enjoying slightly better ground. The step up and trip, he's after gaining some nice experience without winning a chase. So I think he's maybe not so exposed. He's 14-1 or thereabouts. I think he's worth an each way shot.
Okay. I like Lieutenant Rocco as well, Neil. I hate to add to your woes and make yourself feel even worse. But I know he was pulled up in the Albert Bartlett last year, but I thought he was actually running a pretty decent race in it. He jumped really nicely, travelled really nicely through that race. And although he was pulled up, I thought it was a promising effort. And it's taken him a while to get into top stride over fences. I know he won a Foss Lass over 3 miles, the first time he's run over 3 miles over fences. And he ran that really good race at Cheltenham behind Fuser Raffles. So I think that he's an improving horse. So I like him. But as you say, his price has contracted a bit somewhat. Chief, anything that you like maybe, or maybe the market's indicating?
No, just lay this one. Lay everything.
Good confidence. Right, and let's move on then and talk about the first big race, the first championship race of the meeting, and the Champion Hurdle. And there's nowhere else that we can start, Barry, but talking about whether or not Epatante can become JP's 10th winner of the race. And I think it will be his 5th in a row. That will be quite an extraordinary record for your old boss. But can she do it again?
I think she can. The biggest concern we had last year was soft ground. And I thought I was third in the Supreme on Chantry House and he struggled a little bit. I thought we'd no chance with Epatante, but she travelled brilliantly. She seemed to cope with it. She was only 6-year-old, so she's got age on her side now, which I think is a big thing. She's physically has improved. She disappointed at Christmas after being really impressive in Newcastle before that. But the good to soft ground is back in her favour. I think a little bit like Appreciate. I think Honeysuckle, who won in soft to heavy and was so impressive, probably put in a career best the last day in Leopardstown on soft to heavy. I think she needs those conditions. She looked like she wouldn't really be suited by 2 mile at last year's festival on reasonable ground. So I don't see why that's going to be any different. I think she's going to struggle. I would really fancy Epatante. Goshen will be interesting for me. If they ride him forward, I think it lights him up too much. I think he runs with the choke out, been ridden handy. If you watch him down the back straight and we Canton on heavy ground, Jamie's actually given him a little bit of a squeeze. So I think he's a really good stayer. I'd have more faith in him on this better ground on the old course than I would have in Honeysuckle if he was ridden with a small little bit. I'd sit him in. I'd love to ride him second row and try and switch him off there rather than have him gunning from the front. It's a very competitive race. It's a strong race. I thought Sharjah, who ran really well last year on soft ground, is better for better ground. He showed that in Leopardstown for the last 3 years when he won the Christmas Hurdle. I thought he was each value because I think he's actually improved over the last couple of seasons. Second last year on soft ground, which wouldn't have suited him. Better ground's a help for him. So I'd go with last year's form. I think Epatante would be the one to beat and Sharjah could be value each way.
Okay, Epatante, no surprise, and Sharjah the value each way. Neil, what about you?
Well, I actually know Kenny Alexander from years ago. I used to play poker with him many years ago. One day I asked him what he did for a living, and he said, "I'm sort of in your game." And he was kind of running Ladbrokes and Corals at the time. So I'll be delighted for him if he wins. But I do think that Honeysuckle won't want to see the ground drying up. And I think that's a big disadvantage for Honeysuckle. So I can't really back it. I'm sorry about that, Kenny. But I'll be very happy for him if it wins, if she wins. But and Epatante, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of threw in that slightly dodgy run. It's kind of put me off. And Goshen, I've never really kind of caught the Goshen fever. I was against Goshen in the Triumph last year, and I don't know. I sort of feel like that one's a bit softer. So I would say I'm going to look further down the list, but it's not really an each-way race. At the standard place terms of a fifth, first three, or even at a quarter first three, it's actually quite disadvantaged for punters with this number of runners. It's quite a competitive race. So I'll probably throw a few wind darts. I've always liked Silver Streak, and I know obviously I can't really grab the form of Epatante and then go on about Silver Streak. But I think Silver Streak is better on better ground and can improve a little bit for better ground. So I quite like that. But I think the most solid one I like is Abracadabras. And that one really likes the drying ground, I think. So I think that would be my main bet in the race, Abracadabras. If it did come up really soft, I could make a case for Jason the Militant at a big price, but I don't think that'll be suited by the drying ground. So I'd imagine it won't really rain that much.
I'm thinking of chucking a couple of each-way shots at it as well, and I'm thinking the Mullins pair, maybe Sharjah and Saldier, two horses who, they're both obviously very talented, and the way Willie Mullins' horses come to life at the Cheltenham Festival, bettering anything they do through the season, is a tried and trusted method for him. And I like the each-way play on Sharjah, and I think the ground definitely will be a huge positive, as Barry's already said. So that might be how I play it. Chief, what's the market telling us about the Champion Hurdle? Is it Honeysuckle, Epatante, Goshen?
Well, Honeysuckle we've got at 9-4. That's biggest price out there. Epatante 3-1. We're probably a bit shorter than most people. There's some 7-200 to 30 out there. We are 4-1 on Goshen, which is biggest price. Strangely, I reckon Neil's had his satchel men coming to our website today, because Abracadabras has been backed. And which was the other one you mentioned? Not Silver Streak, actually.
Silver Streak, I think it will definitely like this drying ground. Yes.
Jason Militant, we are 28s into 20s today. So, but personally, for this race, I would go with Festival Form. And I'm very loyal to horses I've backed before, so I'm sticking with Barry's winner last year. Not just for the breeches either.
Well, he's got loads of those up his breeches. Right, we're going to move on and talk about the Mayor's Hurdle. Concertista has been touted as a big shot for Willie Mullins. I quite like Roxana, assuming she gets the go-ahead for the race. What do you reckon here, Neil?
Well, he's said, hasn't he, Dan Skelton, that if the going is a bit drier, Roxana will have to go in the stayers. Although I think he seems to, obviously the stayers is a much more wide open race, and Roxana is a much shorter price to win the mares. So presumably, you just want to run in the one that you're going to win, where you've got where you're the shortest price. But I think I love Roxana. I've been a big fan of Roxana the whole time, but I kind of feel like Roxana needs a bit further now. So I'm sort of slightly put off by Roxana, and also, the chance that Roxana might not run in this race, which makes me look a bit further down the list. The one I really like each way is Black Tears. I don't know whether Black Tears is a horse that always wants to win every race she's in, but she has won some races. And where's her career record? I've got it here somewhere. She's had 16 runs, 3 wins, 5 seconds, and 4 thirds. So 12 times out of 16 she's been in the frame, and she's a double figure price in a race where there aren't too many that can win it, I think. And, the favourite being so short gives the race a really good each-way shape for discerning each-way burglars.
All right. Black Tears. Interesting. Barry, what about you?
I think her Concertista will be very hard to beat. She's improved since last season. Roxana is our biggest danger on the book, but I think I'd agree with Neil that she's doing better over 3 miles, and I think she'd have a better shout in the stairs. I think she's going to struggle coming back and trip. Dame the Company, who I won the card on last year, she went up £8 for that to 148. She unseated last time when nearly brought down in Sandown, so you can draw a line through that. But she's a lot of experience over hurdles. She's been running over fences, but she had schooled over fences at the start of last season, so I don't think there's any real issue with switching back to hurdles. She's very quick and very slick, has course form, experience. I think she's an each way alternative, but I'd be very sweet in the favourite.
Okay, a quick word from you, Chief. Anything here?
Not really. Very solid favourite, and we'll probably go off shorter. 11 to 10 at the moment.
All right. Penultimate race on the opening day is the Fred Winter or the Boodles. I think Willie Mullins has a fancied horse. So does Paul Nicholls, Hoogery, who's only run once at Chepstow, but seems to have a big reputation. Thoughts on this one, Neil?
Well, this is it's a bit similar actually to where we were talking about the Ultima, in that everyone's been going on about this Paul Nicholls horse, Hoogery. Well, pretty much since it ran at Chepstow, and where I think it was 200 grand purchase. This horse, it's a very classy looking individual. I was listening to Paul Nicholls on something he was doing. I listened to it this morning, and he said he took a bunch of horses to Wincanton the other day to work, and the jockey hopped off of it. And I don't think Paul Nicholls was supposed to use the F word in this thing I was listening to, but he referred to what the jockey had said about the work that it put in the other day. And I got from that they were pretty impressed. But again, it's this horse was 16 to 1 a week ago, which is kind of weird because Nicholls has got a really good record in the Boodles, or the Fred Winter as was, and he's this was always going to be going for this race. I'm slightly surprised that it was ever chalked up at 16s, but do I want to back it now at sort of 6 to 1? I don't think so, really. Another one that is quite interesting, though, and this is a stable who, perhaps haven't been having a brilliant time this season, but maybe their horses are coming into form now, is Joseph O'Brien. And I do quite like his Bustleton here. It wouldn't be a huge price. I mean, it's about 7 to 1, so it's not much bigger than the Hoogery, but I do think this is potentially very well handicapped. The Fred Winter's a funny race, isn't it? Because what I really like about horse racing and handicaps is getting stuck into the form and the crossing form lines and whatever. But this is a race of dark horses and plots and horses that have run, had their light hidden under a bushel, is it really? I mean, I won't say they've cheated, but they have to kind of play the game to get their mark for this race. And then we find out finally how good they are. Which makes it a lot harder. It was more a race of inside whispers than head in the form book.
Barry, anything that that's been, what's the word, whispered for the Boodles?
Not really, but I would agree with Neil on Bustleton. He was the horse I was coming down on. It is a minefield every year, and it probably lacks a class horse in it. But no, Bustleton, I thought he's after running against Calixios and Zana here, which is competing at a good level. I think better ground is going to suit him. He's going to obviously run at a good, strong pace. He won't have to make his own running. And Justin's horses are just coming into form, having been lost all winter. So he's possibly well handicapped through Joseph's horses being out of form. And as I said, the conditions are going to suit him better. So I'd take a punt at him. But for me, it's a minefield anyway. If you're looking to get a few quid here, you're going bad.
That's probably summed up where I'll be at this time for that race. Sorry, Neil.
Oh, I was just going to say, I did listen to a fella the other day. I would credit him, but I've forgotten who it was. He had a load of stats on various races. He said, if you bet horses in this race who were last time out winners in class 3 or 4 company, who ran within 5 weeks of the race, you'd have had 7 out of the last 36 winners. And you would end up here backing either Balco Saint, Tinahalla, Coltor, or Homme Publique. And those horses are all quite big prices. So I thought that was quite an interesting stat.
Absolutely. Good info again. despite being a dirty man, the only dirty man on this panel. Right, Chief, have you got any thoughts on the Boodles? And if not, have you got the prices as well, or thoughts on the National Hunt Chase, which obviously is the last race of the opening day?
On the Boodles, it's been fairly quiet market for us. We saw a little bit of business for Glorious Zoff, which we had to clip from 12s to 10s, but honestly, it's at the moment Buttons wagered on that race, I'll be honest. So the National Hunt Chase is it we're going on to now?
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that there's no amateurs riding in this?
Correct.
That's right, yeah.
There you go. So here we are. Royal Pigalle, obviously favourite, and we are just getting up on my screen. 11 to 8. We're a bit skinny actually, unlike me. 11 to 8. Royal Pigalle, Galvin 3 to 1. Next Destination 7 to 1. Escara 10 7 to 1. That's the first four in the betting.
All right, Barry, I'll let you kick off here. I quite like the look of this race. I like Next Destination. I've liked him for a while. What about you?
I don't. He didn't excite me in Warwick, so I don't think on that run he's not good enough. Sorry, Rishi.
No, fair enough. I didn't think Warwick suited him personally, but yeah.
Cheltenham mightn't suit him either. Royal Pigalle was very impressive in Haydock, but it was atrocious ground. So he's gone up to a mark of 156, and he's already favoured on the book on that. But I'm not so certain. I like Galvin. He's a lot of experience. He's competed at a good level. He's a winner around Cheltenham. I think being professionally ridden is going to help him because he's a keen going horse. He needs to relax going to the start. Not that we've got some brilliant amateurs, but I think a professional, this one is going to be better suited by a professional. So for me, I like Galvin. I think the drop back to 3.5 from 4 Mile is going to play to his strengths as well because he has enough pace. So he would be the horse who'd interest me. Royal Pigalle, I just have a question mark because it was so bad. He was a good winner in Kenton before that on soft ground, which wouldn't be atrocious. But when you're going on form and heavy ground and you're looking at it on better ground, I just wonder about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a question mark when the going that you've been racing on through that awful patch through the winter changes to spring ground. Neil, you?
Well, it's funny, isn't it, this race? Because, the favourite is, it's much better than an average winner on ratings than an average winner of this race. So it kind of deserves to be a short price favourite. But again, I think I agree with you guys. Definitely the ground has to be a question mark. It did just slog around at Haydock. I mean, it was very impressive, but this is a totally different kettle of fish, isn't it? Galvin was a bit funny last year. I think he sweated up quite badly before the race and played up at the start of it and then finished second in the novice handicap chase that's sadly no longer with us. I could see Galvin. It's just a bit short for me. Iscaria 10 was interesting, although I noticed that that's owned by the people that sponsor the Ultima and it's still in the Ultima. I'm kind of surprised they're not going to run it in their own race, really, although the money seems to suggest it's going to run here. I quite like Cocoa Beach. That was second in the Boodles a couple of years ago. It ran down the field in the Coral Cup last year, and now it's come back to fences. It's rated 150, and I think that might be the one for me at a sort of double figure price. I did look that thing I was listening to with Paul Nicholls. He had quite a few interesting things to say. He's got one in the race. Soldier of Love. He didn't mention it at all. He spent most of the time talking about Next Destination, but he did say that Next Destination probably won't run in this race. The owner would much rather run it in the RSA, so they're probably going to do that. But he wasn't going to make his mind up until he saw the going. I thought Soldier of Love would really like this ground. And it's quite a big price. It's like 30, is it 33s, Chief?
It is, yes.
All right. Okay.
Not for much longer.
Well, this won't go out for another day or two, so hopefully.
All right, that's a look at the opening day. We'll move on and talk about day 2 of the festival. And again, another fantastic race to start off the meeting, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. If you look at the horses near the top of the market, Gaillard de Menil, Bob Ollinger, and Brave Man's Game, again, trainers confident about their horses. How do you see this one setting things off on day 2, Barry?
I've been looking at this race all the build up through the season and thinking it's weak. Brave Man's Game was good in Newbury, but I'm not sure it's strong enough either. Bob Ollinger won well in Naas, but I thought Blue Lord was the horse for me to take out of the race because he ran so keen. But Willie is adamant he's going to go for the Toonwell, I believe. So if Blue Lord lined up in this race, if there happened to be a late change of mind, I think he'd be a big play here, and he's a fancy price too. He's 20 to 1 or thereabouts. So I would love Blue Lord here. But Gaillard de Mesnil, who I thought was very workmanlike in Leopardstown over 2-6 on soft, the heavy ground. Now, he travelled really nice through the race, but Jack had to hurry him along, or not Jack, Paul Townend had to hurry him along in the straight to challenge and to win. Now, he won well at the line, and I was thinking he was more of an Albert Bartlett horse, but Willie, although he left appreciated in the Ballymore, although he intends running them in the Supreme, he took Gaillard de Mesnil out of the Albert Bartlett. So he's fully committed to this race. And I just looked at his action and thought maybe this horse is a horse that would be better on nicer ground. He travelled like a horse with plenty of pace, but just maybe he found it harder work on the ground. So I think he's the one. Bob Ollinger, as I say, I think if Blue Lord lined up here, he'd beat him. So for me, I'd go Gaillard de Mesnil. I'd love to see Blue Lord line up though.
All right. I like that thought process. Neil, any insight into Brave Man's Game? Because I've been hearing, again, Paul Nicholls saying things like the lad who rides Brave Man's Game at home also rides Surname and Master Tommy Tuck and something else, and basically said this is by far the best of them. Whether that, in the context of this season, means as much as it normally does. What do you reckon?
Well, he seemed, on that thing I was listening to this morning, he seemed to be kind of saying that, people kind of picked up on him comparing the horse to Denman and got a little bit carried away. He was just kind of really trying to say it's just gone the same route as Denman. But, I mean, it's obviously a brilliantly promising horse and it's early in its career. That was the thing I was thinking about, was what I tried to say earlier, where, the kind of dichotomy that the Supreme, you tend to think you need, because it's a 2 mile race, you think, well, I need a speed horse. And this being 2 mile 4, you think I need more of a stayer. That guy who had the stats was quite good. He said since 97, grade 1 2 mile winners in the Ballymore, 8 from 16. So 16 runners, 8 winners at the Ballymore. Whereas horses that had won over a grade 1 over 2 miles 4 going into the Ballymore have only won 2 out of 19 runners. So I thought that was quite interesting. Maybe although you think, well, it's a longer race, we need more of a staying tight. Actually, you need a speed horse. I don't know, why is that, Barry? Is it the way the race runs?
I tell you, because you're taking on stairs, it's probably not run like the Supreme is end-to-end gallop. So you need a horse with a cruising speed, but you need a horse who stays. So if you say Champagne Fever was that type of horse, obviously a speed horse can be found out in Cheltenham because he mightn't get home. But the Ballymore, if I look back to I won on Simon Sig, and Mickey was adamant to go for the Supreme because he'd so much pace, and I begged him not to because I said his jumping might just be caught out, but you could ride him like the class horse. So he cantered around in the Ballymore, and you rode him for all the speed in the world. Nothing could quicken with you. So you have a horse with speed taking on real stayers who lack that kick. So they're, a good horse then stands out. So I would agree with you. Here we go down in 3rd gear, the 2 mile grade 1 winner, whereas the rest will be 4th and heading to 5th.
Nice. All right. Chief, have you got any views here?
Well, I've actually got a horse entered in this race, 20% of a horse called Captain Morgs. Very unlikely runner, runs in the 3rd favourite for the Grade 3 at Sandown on Saturday. Horse obviously named after our England cricket captain, Owen Morgan, who's part of the horse as well, actually. But let's see what happens on Saturday. But I doubt we could go Saturday and then to the Ballymore. But we're I think best price 80s, but generally 50s. But on this race, I mean, the way the guys are talking about it, this is just another lovely race for us. Hopefully, bookmakers just lay the top of the market and hope something bit bigger comes out and does the job for us.
All right. I don't think the next race is going to be perhaps as fruitful for you if you're taking on the favourite, but that's my thought, because it is the old RSA, it's the Brown Advisory Novices Chase, and I'm pretty certain one of the good things is lining up here. What is the market saying about Monkfish?
Monkfish is best price 8 to 11. We are 4 to 6, so not really taking him on at the moment. It looks like a sort of one-horse race, but hopefully Neil will dispel that one-horse race theory, because there are none at Cheltenham.
Go on then, Neil, dispel it.
I sort of tend to think that people talk a lot, don't they, about bookmakers doing lots of Cheltenham offers, and you've got to wait for the day because they'll go crazy, and there's no point betting the short ones because they'll all be boosted. I don't really see that with Monkfish. I think it's the second race of the day. It's day 2. If bookmakers are going to do lots of crazy offers, I don't think they're going to go even money Monkfish, because they don't really need to do it on this race. And I think it might be a bit of a weak field against it. Obviously, the horse is just hugely impressive, brilliant jumper, just really good fun to watch. I think it could go off even shorter still. And to be honest with you, I haven't really got one against it. I've struggled a bit to find one. I'm sure it won't be a no-bet race on the day, because I don't really have no-bet Cheltenham races. But at the moment, I haven't really got one against it.
Yeah, there is no such thing as a no-bet race at the Cheltenham Festival. That's from years of experience. Apart from you, Barry, of course, for all those years that you were riding. But this year, Barry, if you were a punter, would there be any point in opposing Monkfish?
I don't think so. I think if you took Monkfish out of the race, it probably wouldn't be the strongest renewal. And he is the real deal. He dropped back to 2 mile 5 the last day and he bolted up. I thought he was possibly vulnerable at 2.5. Hacked up. Paul Townend was interviewed after the race as he pulled up. The horse wasn't even blown. He'd have gone round again. So I think he is an exceptional horse, and he's for me, he's home and hosed. Where the value is, as I said, it's not a very strong race. I thought Sporting John did well to win last time in Sandown. He obviously disappointed last year at the festival. Some of Phillips did that. But he is a very good horse. He looked to jump really well. Sandown's a good test for a novice, and he came through that well. He was beaten first time in Exeter when probably disappointing as well. So on a Sandown run, stepping up and trip, with a horse but still with a lot of potential, I think he's one for the place market, but there's no opposition to Monkfish if he only wins.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I think Monkfish is exceptional. I mean, if he was running in the Gold Cup, I'd give him a squeak. He's that good, it seems. The big breakaway, I hope, will run into a place. He's obviously got a lot of talent, but it's not been the easiest season, as we all know, for the Tizzards, but hopefully he'll run well. The next race, I'm just going to leave this to the experts, because the Coral Cup, it looks almost impossible. It's not obviously, again, it's not going to be a no-bet race. I will have a bet in it. But Neil, I'll let you kick off.
On the stats, I think you don't want to go too high up the weights. I think generally 11 stone and under, that doesn't usually knock out too many, but I might look a little bit further down. I don't know. I mean, I wrote down a whole bunch of potentials. I thought Birchdale was quite interesting for Nicky Henderson. It was 8th last year in the race, and it's carrying £2 less than last year now. I sort of feel like Henderson's horses, they had a little bit of not a brilliant time a couple of weeks ago, but they're having winners still. Obviously, he gears everything up for the festival. And, he has a stable full of horses that want better ground. I do sort of tend to think that in the handicaps, sometimes, some of the English trainers, and particularly Paul Nicholls, I think, their horses are trained a bit too honestly. You know, they run a lot during the winter, and they don't fiddle about switching from fences back to hurdles a lot, that kind of thing. And that can perhaps cost them at Cheltenham. And I think sometimes for certain kinds of horses that can cost Nicky Henderson in the handicaps. But no, I think this one I don't mind, and that might be the one for me.
All right, Barry, the Coral Cup. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, Birchdale, I would agree with Neil slightly on Birchdale, but Birchdale has promised and promised and promised, and he's still promising. If he was ever to produce what his potential shows at home, and I was slightly torn between him and Dame the Company last year, and I came down on Dame the Company because she had so much experience. And that was obviously the negative against him. He's been running over fences since then. So his last experience of a handicap hurdle was this race last year. And he ran okay. So he has a squeak, and he's probably worth a few quid each way. But I like the favourite, Gran Roy. I've seen him at home. He looks really well. He's been working well. He was second last time in Bacchus. Beacon's Edge was third. I think stepping up on trip on better ground is going to suit him. Nicky had him before he was sold, and he would have loved to have kept him, so he rated him highly. So for me, I think Gran Roy, he has more weight than ideal, but it's a funny race, this. And as I said, I won it last year with Dame the Company. I won it before with Sky's the Limit. I think he'd 11-1 or something. They can often not go that quick, and they didn't go that quick last year. And in that instance, I think having 11-6 or something like that wouldn't be as much of a burden. They tend to go flat to the boards of the county hurdle, and it's a bit like the Supreme versus the Ballymore in the race over 2.5. For some strange reason, maybe it's just the years I've won it, they haven't gone as quick. So I'd be happy with Gran Roy, and Birchdale is of interest each way, but as I said, there's a lot of promise.
Okay.
I forgot.
Sorry,
I had another one I meant to say. When I started talking about Paul Nicholls, I knew there was a reason. There's always a reason. It's just because he's got one that is a bit different to his kind of normal MO, in that it's come back to hurdles from chasing. And so possibly it might be a little bit more disguised, shall we say, than some of his runners in the handicaps. And that's Saint Sonnet. It's quite a big price, I think.
Last year before the festival, he won up at Catterick over fences, and then he went for the Marsh, didn't he? And then he was quite well fancied a couple of times this season. It just hasn't worked out.
It's basically run really poorly this year on really awful ground, and it just wants spring ground. I don't actually know whether it's a certainty to run in this race, but I just thought this might be the race for it. It's off 143 now, and it definitely hasn't really had its opportunity to show its best this winter. But if it runs, I think that's definitely a spring ground horse.
Okay. Good distraction, though, briefly.
Sorry about
that. Chief, the big one on the Wednesday, of course, is the Queen Mother Champion Chase. A race that Barry Geraghty, I think, has won 5 times. Am I right, Barry?
Yeah. It was a lucky race for me.
It was, indeed. You rode some super horses in that. Chief, what's the story in this?
Well, we've got another short price favourite. This is my favourite race of the festival. Nearly backed all of Barry's winners, actually. Probably have backed them all, and some of them twice. Moscow Flyer, I'd say just pips it for me, but Barry may say something else there. So here we are. This is another Richie short one, isn't it? Chacun pour soi is even money. He's as short as 4 to 5, some bookmakers. We're even money, which is biggest out there at the moment. Altior 13 to 2 with us. And then take your pick on the rest, I'd say. But
right, Barry, given your record in this race, I'm going to let you start here. Who would you ride, because this is going to win this year?
Chacun pour soi. It's fairly simple. He is head and shoulders above the field. Altior, obviously a brilliant horse in his day, but he is on the slide. He's 11-year-old now, so the clock is against him, but he still represents the biggest threat. I know Nicky mentioned there's a chance to put cheek pieces on him, which he will be better for. I think it's going to sharpen his jumping. which is going to help him. Obviously, Kempton wasn't ideal for him as a track, but he didn't score brilliantly after it. So you can probably you can ignore some of his defeats. He was defeated against Surname and Ascot the same. So he's still capable of running to a high level. I think he's the nearest to Chacun Pour Soi, but I don't think he's a danger. I think Chacun Pour Soi, even money, is a great price on him. But Altior's next best. I thought value in a horse called Celius Emery, if he goes here. He won a Nace last time. I actually tipped him up at 50-1 a few weeks ago before he ran a Nace. I thought he has a squeak. He has pace. He has potential. Because for me, Put the Kettle On isn't good enough. Politolog isn't good enough. Nube Negra, I don't think it's good enough. Fakir de Rees, I thought I'd go for the Ryanair. Likewise, Min. Scural was good in Newbury, but maybe not to this level. First Flow, the same. Celius Emery, I think, could be worth an each way play, but without Chacun Pour Soi. But Chacun Pour Soi he's rock solid.
But Barry's slowly decimating all the selections I have placed because you say I like Nuba Negra. I don't think he'll beat Chacun Pour Soi, but I think he could run into a place because he's a good jumper, touch wood, and he travels very well. And he could be called the winner a long way out at Kempton. Different story at Cheltenham in a race like Queen Mother Championships, but I thought he could sneak a place. What about you, Neil?
Well, Nubi Negra, in that race at Kempton, you suddenly looked and thought, it was like one of those marathon runners that kind of joins in halfway. And I thought, where the hell is this coming from? It's absolutely cruising. And Dan Skelton's horses are running really well. He had a 4-timer the other day, and they're in flying form. I think that can run a race. I don't know whether it can win. I think from an each-way point of view, this is not one of these anti-post filthy ones where there's going to be less than 8 runners. I think there'll be plenty of runners in this race, maybe 11, 12, 13 runners. So it's not quite so, rushed to get your account closed as perhaps the Arkle was. But it is a good each-way shape of a race. Chacun Pour Soi obviously deserves to be favourite, but I think bookmakers will look to take this one on much more than they do Monkfish on the day, because it's a race that's got a few other runners behind it. And they can see that they've got a chance of a result. I thought there was a couple of interesting ones I like. I loved the way David Bass rode First Flow at Ascot. That was incredible to watch and really good fun and a brilliant ride. But I think that horse does want soft ground, so I don't think I'm going to be going anywhere near that. I quite like Put the Kettle On each way. I think people kind of knocked the Arkle last year. And it was possibly a better race than people were saying. It was definitely like the ground, I think that could at least place. So I'll have to back that each way. But I'm going to look for a slightly bigger price one, I think. And that's I do really like Henry de Bromhead generally. I like all of his horses, but favourite in the race last year, 33-1 this year. Notebook. Twice beaten by Chacun Pour Soi this year. Absolutely loves the ground. I could easily see it coming third. But you win more money on an each way bet at that kind of price than you would by backing the favourite at even money.
Fair enough. So Notebook, the each way selection for Neil in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. We've got 3 more to go through on this, the second day. St. Patrick's Day, and up next it's the cross country chase. So who would like to go first here? Neil, I know you're a big fan of the cross country chase, so why don't you start us off?
There is the sneaky herpes angle, isn't there, here, really? I thought we'd probably get onto herpes at some stage during this call. Easy's Lands, it hacked up in this race a couple of years ago, absolutely cruised there, beat Tiger Roll. They've got this problem in France. They keep saying, David Cotin has said several times that it won't be a problem bringing the horse over. It's got to be a worry, hasn't it? Surely that must be a situation that's changing day by day. I can't think a week out that you could be totally dogmatic about saying everything's absolutely fine. So I think if you have an each way bet in there, I know it's disgusting, and Chief's probably thinking, why did we invite this guy along? But if you have an each way bet today, you're kind of giving yourself a free shot, aren't you, that your horse halves in price if Easy Lands is a non-runner. It doesn't feel like the market's really factored that in very much. And I don't know, the situation in France sounds terrible. And, I would have thought it must be a bit of a worry. Even if Easy Lands does come, it hasn't had the same kind of season as it had last time. Didn't run very well, I thought, at over course and distance in November. And it definitely wants soft ground. And I don't think, the cross-country course, they don't water, do they? So if we don't get as much rain as people think, and they have to talk about watering at Cheltenham, they won't be able to water the cross-country course. It's always a bit drier on the cross-country course anyway. So I'm quite big against Easy Land. I don't want to go anywhere near Tiger Roller. And sadly, I think the horse has gone at the game. So I'm going to go for the winner of the Midlands Grand National, the winner of the Welsh Grand National, the winner of the Virtual Grand National. And it's going to be, I didn't even get an increase in its mark for the Virtual. Potter's Corner for Christian Williams. Really likes a bit of fast ground. It's only tried the cross country once before in the race in November. And I'm not going to criticise the jockey because I'm sure he did a better job than I could have done. But if I was riding in a cross country race for the first time, I guess I would probably do what he did and sort of, not get involved in the business end of the race early on in order to sort of save my stamina and make sure I finished the course properly. And that's exactly what he did. And then he ran on strongly for a place. You got to think this time in the big one, is going to be given a bit more of a prominent role early. It won't be coming from so far behind. But I think either way, it makes it a brilliant each way bet because I just feel like it's going to be staying on strongly at the end. And I really like that, actually. I would say that's my nap of the day.
Potter's Corner, tremendous. Yeah. I have to say as well, I've never known that stamina has been a problem for you. So I don't know why you ride yourself like that in there. Barry, what about you? What about this Easy Land situation? And would you be worried at all by what's happening in France?
You'd have to be. But he is on the book. He is the pick, and he's the one you'd want to be on. If you take everything out of the equation, if he turns up, if he's allowed run, if he's allowed travel, if he's healthy, all the ifs. But he is the best horse in the race, and he is the likely winner if all those ifs are right. For me, I thought maybe value in Lord de Mesnil. Winner at Haydock last time, up £5, rated 154, stays well. He ticks the boxes if you like, but I don't think it's a race that should be weighing in heavy on one unless you had a very strong opinion. So for me, he's one with a chance. I would agree with Neil on Potter's Corner. Same thing, proven at the trip, has the benefit of a run around here as well. So it's a specialist race if you like. They're two of the right types, but Easy Land to be hard to beat if he turns up healthy and well.
Chief, were you a cross country man when you were younger? Or now, maybe?
Believe it or not, I went to school in Cheltenham, and I went to prep school and public school in Cheltenham, and I came second in the school cross country at the age of 30. That was in my pre-20 stone days. But yes, I was a cross country man, and then many years later, actually, Sporting Index were the first ever sponsors of cross country race at Cheltenham, and were for many years until we got fed up of giving JP McManus too much prize money every year. But
I did cross country in PE at school. There were 4 of us that chose to do cross country, and we would run to the snooker club, play snooker, and then they used to just let us knock off at the end of the day after the PE. They didn't actually check whether you came back. So yeah, it was good. Cross country, love it.
In contrast, Chief, what about the Grand Annual and the market for the Grand Annual? Because
just quickly going back to that race, it could be quite a scary time for bookmakers if the first 2 favourites come in. The first 2 shorties, because it's the 3rd shorty of the day. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. But what tends to happen with these things at Cheltenham is someone falls at the last, and bookmakers all breathe a sigh of relief, and something else goes in, and one person shouting. But anyway, there won't be anyone shouting, sadly, there this year, apart from stable staff, I guess.
Indeed.
Anyway, on to the Grand Annual. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, the Grand Annual is the next race we'll preview. And I was going to ask you for a little stare in the market, primarily because I find it hard to believe. If somebody had said to me at the start of the season, Sky Pirate is going to be at the top of the market for the Grand Annual. But he, in fairness to the horse, he's definitely turned a corner and looks far more genuine than perhaps I'd given him credit for. So I'll eat my words on him.
Yeah, there's sort of three or four horses vying for favouritism here. It's Embittered is the one that people have come for today, 6-1, and then En Tout Cas 7-1, 13-2. Sky Pirate 6s, third. We're 6s on Sky Pirate. The Shunter 15-2, 7-1. So I mean, it's, as we all know, it's as competitive as ever. This, and
well,
I don't know who's been holding back the best in this type of race.
Well, the Shunter's got about 33 entries over the 28 races, so I'm not entirely certain I can be sure what he's right. But Barry, what do you like for the Grand Annual?
I think it's a very tricky race this year because it's changed course. It's on the old course, which is more emphasis on speed. So it would steer me away from a novice, really, because you're going to have 20, 22 runners, and it's flat to the boards. It's going to be a real test of novices. A novice would do well in the Grand Annual, but it's a very, very different track. So I'd be a little bit wary of novices. They're going to have to be very good to cope with this race. Joseph is well represented with the two at the top that the chief mentioned, Embittered and Tukas. He also has a Wave by the Sea, who was a winner in Leopardstown last time. Sky Pirate is a horse who I wouldn't normally fancy in it, but he has just shown he seems to have improved. And he wherever he's found it from at this stage of life, I'm not sure, but he has the experience. He has the form. I think he's probably the one I would side with in a tricky race, because it's a very different race. All the novices with potential you'd normally like, but I'd just be worried about them in a race like this. They've only had 3 and 4 and 5 runs over fences. I'd nearly go with Sky Pirate. I'd take a chance on him.
All right. Neil, what about you?
I actually got a question. It's probably a question for Barry, because he probably knows more about actual horses and their physiques and stuff like that, their physicalities, than you two boys do.
Oh, yes.
I'm guessing anyway. This thing with the Shunter is going to win $100,000 bonus if it wins the race at Cheltenham, and as Rishi said, it's entered in virtually everything. Does it really make a big difference if they wait a couple of extra days because of the, bring it back so quickly from its last run? Does that make it much more likely to run in one of the races on Friday, just so that they get a couple more days, or is 2 days not really going to make that much difference?
No, it would make a big difference, and especially when he's travelled over to, he was in Scotland obviously last week or on the borders. He's making 2 trips, which is hard. Now you can only assess the individual. Some horses will take it better than others. He's been to England before. He seems to have travelled a bit, so he probably does okay in that regard. But 2 runs, it's 11 days from the Grand Annual to his previous win in Kelso. 2 trips to England. He'll be better for 13 days. So if it was a close call, he'd be better waiting towards the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the Shunter looks really well handicapped, doesn't it? And I guess if it runs in this, it's got a great chance. But I sort of feel like it might not run in this. I was really interested originally when I first looked at this race about a week ago in Gordon's horse. I say Gordon's horse. I guess we still say that. Chosen Mate. It won the race. It absolutely bolted up in this race last year, off 147. And then, it's running off £8 more this year. It was 4-1 last year, and it's like 20-1 now. I'm guessing that's because it's not going to run, is it? I don't know. I might have missed that. Maybe they've made a statement about it, but it doesn't look like it's going to run. I would have thought if it ran, it should be a lot shorter. I know it hasn't necessarily had a brilliant season, but I thought that was quite interesting. Definitely, and we've said already, Joseph O'Brien's horses haven't had a brilliant season, but they're starting to come back into form, and he's got a few in this. Us and Them is a slightly bigger price than the one that people seem to have latched onto, which is Embittered. And that was 3rd in the race last year off 148, and it's carrying £1 less this time, 147. I think that would be the one for me, Us and Them.
All right. I'm just going to give a shout to Tamrock Dumata. I know what Barry said about novices going in this race, but he had a wind up after his hurdling career back about a year ago. Since then, he's had the 3 runs over fences. He's won twice, won well twice, and the only time he's been beaten was by Shishkin at Kempton, where he actually travelled really nicely, and the better horse that Shishkin is got away from him. I'm slightly concerned of where he is in the handicap. But in terms of talent and promise, I thought he's an interesting horse. I am now worried about what Barry's saying about these novices going around this course, with the race now having moved to the Wednesday. One more race to look at indeed on the Wednesday, and it is the Champion Bumper. And Chief Willie Mullins' hand further strengthened by the addition of Sir Gerhard to his team.
He is indeed. So here, Sir Gerhard's second favourite, 2-1, very, very solid in the market. Favourite is Kilcreek, 7-4 with Sporting Index odds. Third favourite, Third Strike Life, 8-1, and then it's 16 Spa.
Right, who's going to win this, Neil?
It's weird, isn't it? Because Kilcreek was so impressive at the Dublin Racing Festival, just ridiculously impressive. You'd think it would be a lot shorter, though, really. And now, obviously, the stable have now got the front 2 in the betting due to recent events. And it looks like all the money's for Sir Gerhard. I don't know. I mean, the Bumper wouldn't normally be a race. I don't mind watching it, and I'm quite enjoy it, and I'll have a bet, I'm sure. But it wouldn't be one of my races to really get stuck in. I thought Grangey of Willie Mullins's, it ran in the Mares Bumper at the Dublin Racing Festival, and it came late. I thought that showed a bit of stamina and would make for a decent each way bet in this race. But I don't know whether it's not a race I'm going to get too carried away in.
Fair enough. Barry, I think even I could have ridden Kilcreek when it won last. Oh, it was so impressive. I mean, do you think that is the one to beat?
He was very impressive, obviously. But I don't know, it was a very strongly run race. I thought Patrick gave him a beautiful ride. He sat, he was patient, and he was the best horse on the day. But different conditions, I'm just not fully convinced. I was probably more impressed with Sir Gerhard, who beat the Gavin Cromwell horse, who was second to Kilcreek as well. He beat, let's be clear about it, in Navan. In a slower run race, he showed good pace in the straight and he pulled away. So Sir Gerhard may be of more interest. I like Three Stripes Life. He was very impressive in Navan on his only run. I've ridden him work and I like him. I think he's a good horse. But I thought maybe Value could be the horse that they all thought Patrick should have ridden in Leopardstown was Ramillies. Yeah, I think he's of interest. I thought maybe they rode him too far forward, but obviously his work at home is very good. He has pace, so he could be value each way. I think he's about 16-1 or thereabouts. So I'd be I'd be wary about Kilcreek. I like Sir Gerhard. I like Three Stripe Life, but no, I go for value on Ramillies.
I like Sir Gerhard. I think he looks like a slightly hardier horse at the moment than maybe Kilcreek, because he just, I don't think he'll mind the battle. We'll move on and talk about Thursday, and talking about horses that obviously carrying a lot of attention and hype. The first race on Thursday is the Marsh Novices Chase, and Chief Envoy Allen. Is there anything potentially being backed against them, or is this just one that people are watching and hoping that the favourite wins again?
It's an obvious one, isn't it? Obviously, moves stable though. But I think Henry will have him right when he 8-11. I can't oppose him. I think he'll be in everyone's ACCAs, won't he, that day, and maybe in the festival ACCAs as well. But I can't say a lot about it other than it looks like a one-horse race here again.
Barry, would there be any concern as a horseman, and considering the shortness of Envoy Allen in the market, would there be any concern about the fact that he's had to switch stables? I know Paul Nicholls has mentioned saying it's not ideal. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it's not ideal, but you can't say for sure. But I think he'd be okay. He's a very laid back horse. I had the pleasure of sitting on him as well back in the autumn. He's gorgeous. He is the real deal. So we put that down first. He's by far and away the likely winner of the race, and he is an aeroplane. Probably one positive would be Henry de Bromhead, I believe, uses the same feeding as Gordon, which is a big thing. So his only difference is going to be his hay, if you like. So that's not going to affect him so much. But he's a very laid back horse. So I think the change of scenery mightn't affect him as much either. So I think he's going to be very hard to beat. But looking at the race, and Orgamy runs in the Arkle, Monkfish runs in the Brown Advisory. That leaves you on Chantry House, Shan Blue. Shan Blue would have a chance of running well. Chantry House would need to improve on what he's done in Weatherby, but he has the potential. He wasn't, I don't think we saw the best of him in the Supreme when he was third. So he did well to finish there. He is a horse with potential. It's probably not the strongest race like that when you take the favourite out of it. So I like Chantry House to run well. I thought maybe Chatham Street Lad could run well into a place. He's got plenty of experience. He's highly rated. We have the pleasure of Mick Winters rolling around the winners enclosure again, which would be brilliant. But he'd have a little each way show, but Envoy Allen is going to be very hard to beat.
Neil?
Well, this is if you really want to, this is another. It's such a shocker that the betting shops are not open, because what we really need to. First of all, I've got nothing against Envoy Allen. I think it is by far the most likely winner, and it should be odds on, and it probably will be odds on. But I think what will happen is that he'll scare away a lot of the opposition, and this race will really cut up. I'll be amazed if there's 8 runners. I think there could be 5 or 6 runners. And it's a brilliant opportunity to have an each-way anti-post double with the Arkle. Get your Captain Guinness money, place money, running on to, and you can stick a couple in there. I think Fusel Raffles, I think is really solid to place in this race. Really like the drying ground, and is a definite runner that's been targeted for this race. I think Chantry House is fine. I wouldn't mind that as well. And I think Shan Blue jumps really well, and I quite like Shan Blue. I could easily see myself, certainly Captain Guinness being one of them, but sticking a couple from the Arkle in some each way doubles with this race. Sorry, Chief. I know you don't want that kind of business.
Okay, so Envoy Allen, but a few dirty each ways for Neil, as per the Potemps handicap hurdle. What are we thinking here, Neil? I'll let you start off, because it's another handicap that I know that you've done a massive amount of research on.
Well, I did a bit. I mean, obviously, the Potemps is always a funny one, isn't it? Because they have this kind of slightly archaic qualifying system. Which I think they probably ought to change now, really. I think there's been a bit of talk about changing it. The horse that finished 6th in the Punchestown qualifier is the one that a lot of people seem to be talking about, Linwood Gold. I mean, this horse is definitely a horse that's going to appreciate the drying ground. It's Jessica Harrington. I think that looks very, very solid each way. I definitely wouldn't put anyone off. I think I don't know whether it's still a double figure price. I think when I last looked, it was about 10 or 12 to 1. That would probably be my main fancy in the race. I did look at this race a few weeks ago, and I was kind of a bit of a fan of the Boss's Oscar. I'm not against it now, but I kind of feel like the vibes have not been that strong. And obviously with everything that's happened, maybe those kind of vibes count for more now. I'm not sure. I looked at another one as well at a bigger price, was Mrs. Milner, which is Paul Nolan's horse. I thought that was quite interesting. I'm not going to back too many English horses in the handicaps. I think the Irish do have a big advantage, and I think the Irish are going to have a great week. But I did have a little look at one here, an English horse, which was Come On Teddy for Tom George. He's not having a bad season, and I thought that had a chance. But really, my main bet in this would be Jesse Harrington's Linwood Gold.
I like Linwood Gold, I'm afraid to say. I thought Robbie Power gave him a good qualifying ride last time out, which was just what he needed to get him ready for Cheltenham. Barry, what do you like?
I'm sorry to be boring, lads. I would like Linwood Gold as well. It was a good run. The right end of the weights too, 10-7. Definitely a big chance. Champagne Platinum, I thought ran nicely in Haydock. Just looked a little bit outpaced early in the straight and finished out well. So I think he's going to suit, Cheltenham's going to suit him a lot better. So I think he's a chance. I did like Imperial Alcazar, but I just worry that the penalty he got for winning his last one, I think might just take the edge off him. He's got 11.6 to carry. It's not ideal. So I'd rather have the horse without the penalty and would be a Champagne Platinum or Linwood Gold. They'd be the two I'd like.
Okay.
I definitely agree with you on that, Barry, on Imperial Alcazar. I mean, I feel like Fergal O'Brien is way too good a trainer to not have a load of Cheltenham winners in the next 5 years. But that feels like not a brilliantly handicapped horse.
Maybe the owner's colours might be carried to victory in the next race, the Ryanair, the first of the big races on the penultimate day of the 2021 Cheltenham Festival. Chief, can I just get a little précis on what the market looks like for the Ryanair at this stage?
Very competitive. So we are currently, we're 9-2 Allaho. It's 9-2, 5-1 around, 6-1. Everyone is on Min. Imperial Aura, we're 6s. That's the same everywhere. Mr. Fisher, 8s. Mellon, 13-2. Fakir Duder is 8-1. I don't know if all these run. Barry will know more.
Well, I'll come to you, Barry, and ask you for your...
10 boys, 7-1.
The likelihood is that your selection will probably be running. So what is it?
I like Fakir to the race. And I only read this evening that they're waiting to make a decision. But for me, this will be the race to go because Chacun Poursuit, he was second to the last day. He's not going to beat him unless for some reason Chacun Poursuit doesn't turn up like he didn't last year. But I think he's a good chance in this race. I think he's better over 2.5. But it was a good run, and we've mentioned Joseph's horse coming into form. He would be the one for me. I think St. Calvados as well, who was a little bit unlucky in this race last year. I thought Min was probably on top from, you could say, over the last two fences. I think with a clear run, he might have just got up. Hard to fancy Min on his last run. Mellon, it depends what Mellon turns up. But for me, I would be Fakir de Rees or St. Calvados.
Okay, Neil?
It's really wide open, isn't it? I'm a bit annoyed with myself because I was looking at Fakir Duderies a couple of weeks ago and then I didn't do anything. And I don't know whether it's slightly too short now. I'll be amazed if they didn't go for the Ryanair. I'll be very surprised if they switched. I guess it's still a fair enough price. What is it? Did you say, Chief, 8-1? Fakir Duderies? Yes,
it's 8. It's actually 8-1 everywhere.
I mean, it's very much an improving horse. It's young. Yeah, Joseph's are coming into form. I think I could probably stick with it. On St. Calvados, I was worried a couple of weeks ago generally about Harry Whittington's horses. They'd been having a terrible time. They've hit a bit of form. I think, though, that horse wants proper soft ground, doesn't it? That would put me off a little bit. Although his horses are running way better than they were. I haven't had a bet in the race so far. I feel like it's going to be Fakir Dudery. Yeah, there's not many others that are really attracting me. I mean, Min, I feel like it doesn't win often enough for me, and Mellon might not be the horse it was. It may turn out to be less competitive than it at first appears, I think.
I'm with Barry on St. Calvados. I know what you're saying about the ground, but I think he's only had one run on proper, decent, good ground in his whole career. I don't think he's been given the opportunity to really test himself on decent ground. And I think the Harry Whittington team, I think they've had 5 winners in the last couple of weeks. So clearly they're over whatever ailed them. And when he ran and he was unseated, that was obviously in the worst of the spell, but he travelled like the best horse for a long way in the King George. And back over this trip, obviously, having run well in the race last year, he'll be the one for me. The Stairs Hurdle up next. Chief, I'll let you just give us another little summary of how the market's looking.
It's a lovely competitive race, just how we like them. So obviously Paisley Park at the top of the market is, I apologise, Time Hill at top of the market, 3-1 with us. Paisley Park 100-30, Cider Burley 7-1, Flooring Porter 11-1, Roxana, does it run here? Does it run in the mares? 8-1. and then it's sort of 12-1 storyteller onwards.
All right. What about you here, Neil? I'll let you start off for the stayers.
I mean, that race at Ascot, that was a brilliant race, wasn't it? I mean, it was so memorable. I'm so useless at remembering horses' names years later. I feel like that's one I'm going to remember for years to come. Having said that, I've never really been a backer of Paisley Park. I tend to be a lot of horses in the Stayers Hurdle over the years. They always come back year after year, don't they? And I always seem to feel like I'm laying the same horse every year. And I feel like I've done that a bit with Paisley Park. So maybe it's not my best friend. I'm going to kind of look a bit further down the prices. And I've looked at, I was looking at Fury Road a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know, that's maybe I've gone off that a bit. I could definitely find myself backing Lisnagar Oscar on the day. I think that's a bit of a forgotten horse. Obviously, she doesn't have that many horses, and we haven't heard too much from the stable generally. But they seem to be talking as if it's got a good chance. And I'm not sure that last year's winner should be more than 14-1 really to repeat. So I'm definitely going to have to back that. Whether I throw a couple of other darts at it. I guess Sire de Burley is solid enough, and I notice you've got an offer there, Chief, 6-4 to place.
Yeah.
I would have thought that sounded reasonable. I'm not a big fan of Time Hill. I did actually back Time Hill last year in the Albert Bartlett. I mean, I can't really see how he's going to reverse the form with Paisley Park from Ascot. So I'm not really a fan of that at the prices. One that would be really interesting, I think it's going to run in the Gold Cup, isn't it? But if it does run here in the Stayers Hurdle, surely Vindication's got a chance. And it would be quite a lot shorter, I guess, than the prices I've seen around today. That could be interesting, but I think Lisnagar Oscar will be my one.
Vindication, definitely a left field suggestion. Barry, is the winner trained in Britain or Ireland, first of all?
I think in Britain. I'm a big Time Hill fan, and I fancied him to win in Ascot after fancying him to win in Newbury, but he got beaten by Paisley Park, obviously, and Paisley Park I think he's made for Cheltenham. I think he's made for the race. I suppose the one negative about him, he's turned up at 3 festivals and he's been out of the first 10, I think, in 2 of them. So he's 1 from 3 at the festival is the only negative, but he's the ideal horse for the race. Race behind the bridle, finishes strongly. Time Hill probably travels a little bit too well, and I think that was the beating of him in Ascot. But in the same token, Paisley Park got hung up in traffic turning in, so he had his own problems to overcome. So for me, I'd be on Paisley Park. I think he's the one. I think Sire de Burley has an each-way shout. And also Fury Road, I think he's valued at 16-1. I think he's an each-way play as well. But it's a good race, but a lot of horses who probably just aren't good enough to trouble the top 2. So I take a chance on something like maybe Fury Road for value.
All right. I'm a big fan of Paisley Park for this race. I think when he came back at Newbury, he was ridden for the return run, and Time Hill beat him, yes, fair and square in the day. But then he beat Time Hill then at Ascot when things didn't go right for him, and Aidan Coleman had to switch out round the bend and had a decent amount of make-up. And then, as you say, I think he's a Cheltenham horse. The way he won the race a couple of years ago was really impressive. So he will be the horse for me. The next race we're going to talk about is the Paddy Power Plate, which is the 5th race on the Thursday. A very difficult one. I found this one to solve. Chief, you've squinted your face up because I think you're in agreement.
Well, I think this is a Neil Channing race. He'll find this 33-1 winner here, I reckon.
It definitely will be. It's not one. I didn't think we were going to cover it, and I haven't actually done any work at all on it. I do remember from last year, I did some stats on it last year, and it's a brilliant race for front runners. And the winner last year, I think, was it Simply the Bets last year, and it led from the front, and it never really got headed. I can remember 2 or 3 front runners winning in the last few years, but it turns out to be. So that will be my angle into it. But I must admit, I haven't really done the work on it yet. Sorry about that.
No problem. Honesty is the best policy. Barry, tell me that you've done some work on it.
Some.
That's enough.
I liked Umbrigado. Now, I sold him as a youngster, so I probably have a little bit of an affection for him. But he was very good at Newbury. But I'd be worried about the quick turnaround for him. I'd say Ace and Ideal. I think it's a tricky race. I thought Away of the Sea, actually, should I say. I thought he would have a chance. He got up to win a competitive handicap in Leopardstown. I think he might be better stepped up and trip. He would be one of interest. It's a tricky one. There's holes in lots of them, but no, I'd probably go Away by the Sea if I was to go for something.
Okay. I'm just going to mention Mr. Whitaker, who ran well in the race last year. He was third behind Simply the Bets. Hasn't been quite at his best this season, but obviously it's just eased a fraction in the handicap. But I love Cheltenham course and distance and Cheltenham Festival form. I think he's about 14s or 16s, and an each way play I'd prefer with a horse that's been there and done it before. Penultimate race on the penultimate day, the Mayor's Novices Hurdle. Wonderful addition to have more Mayor's races, of course. Haha. Right, Chief. What does the market say? Royal Kahala and Hook Up, the two horses to concentrate on at the top?
Exactly. Those two are vying for favouritism. Royal Kahala just favourite with us, 9-2. Hook Up 5-1. Rosie's Hollow 11-2. Gulwaz 8-1. Glancing Queen 9s, and then it's sort of 10s bar.
Barry, Royal Kahala and Hook Up, they've met before. Of the two, do you prefer one or the other? And if you do, is that the horse that you think might win, or is it going to come from elsewhere?
No, I think Royal Kahala to me looks like she loved the soft ground when she beat Hook Up. Hook Up looked the winner, going to the last, fluffed the last, and that's probably her Achilles heel is her jumping. But she ran in a handicap before that in Leopardstown, which was fourth, or since then, should I say, she was fourth. She would be the one for me. She's the pick of the race, but her jumping's a problem. I think she's going to benefit from the better ground. Rosie's Hollow, for me, like Kahala or Royal Kahala, I think loved soft ground. And they had Gallows behind them the last day. So for me, Hook Up, but her jumping just needs to be as good as it can be. But I think this track gives her a little bit more time with only 3 hurdles in the last mile of the race. She has a better chance. It's nearly half a mile from the last or the second last hurdle is going to help her. So I take a punt and Hook Up.
Neil, I know you campaigned, you signed a petition for more Mayor's races. Cheltenham, so you must be looking forward to this.
I was mostly upset about the Mayor's Chase depriving us of a lovely 20-runner handicap on day one. That was really what I was upset about. I mean, I think the Hook Up jumping thing is a big worry. She hasn't jumped brilliantly, but I think she liked the quicker ground, so she would have a chance. On the whole, Royal Kahala, Rosie's Hollow, the two that faced each other last time, Royal Kahala looks like she's waited to reverse the form. And also, I don't think she really got the run of the race last time. She raced a bit wide, and she was kind of scrubbed along, actually. Or maybe slightly outpaced a little bit. She didn't seem to be going brilliantly, and then she stayed on all right. I think I'm quite confident that Royal Kahala will win that match against Rosie's Hollow. And if I'm quite confident of that, I guess that makes Royal Kahala a reasonable bet at around about 5-1 to win the race, because Rosie's Hollow is one of the main challengers. And yeah, with a doubt about Hook Up's jumping as well. I guess there's a couple of sort of niggles against other horses. So, I think I've sort of talked myself into Royal Kahala in the last couple of days, and I can't see myself not backing that. Whether I'll add anything else, I sort of think the Glancing Queen is all right, and I might persuade myself to have a couple of win bets. It wouldn't be a race I'd play each way in. It's not very good shape for each way betting. So even though, people might look at it and think, well, these are quite decent prices, it's 5-1 the field, 4-1 the field, that kind of race. I don't think it's a good race to play each way. It's better to have 2 win bets than an each way bet.
Good advice. Final race on the Thursday is the Fulk Walwyn Kim Muir. That handicap over 3.25 miles. The horse who's near the top of the market for this one, Chief, is it Time to Get Up of John Joe Neals?
Time to Get Up is with Sporting Index odds is a 11-2 shot, not quite favourite. We've got Run Wild Fred, it's 5-1 market leader. And then we go into bigger price ones. Hold a Note, 11-1. Deeds, Arbor, we all say these horses differently, 12-1. Shantou Flyer, 14-1. And there you go.
Okay. I was particularly interested, Barry. I'll start off with Time to Get Up, who was with Joseph O'Brien in Ireland, actually finished second to Monkfish over hurdles back in the day. And John Joe Neals obviously got him now. And I like the way he's slowly progressing, and he would be my pick. I know he's at the top of the market, but that's a pretty obvious thing to say. What about you? What do you like?
I like Run Wild Fred. I thought it was good on the last day in the Tiestas. I like him at the top of the market, but I think he's a good chance in a very competitive race. As regards value, I'm actually going to go with a bit of an odd one. An 11-year-old, Shantou Flyer. Change of stable to Paul Nichols, has a 2-run, a good run. The last day finished second. He's up £4. He was 157, I think, at one stage. This is a real staying race on the new course. Takes a lot of getting. I think he's a classy horse on his day. He showed his well-being last time. I think the triple nice gun is ideal for him. So I take a punt at him each race, Shantou Flyer.
Okay, Shantou Flyer, nodding away, Neil. You like
I
Shantou
couldn't
Flyer?
disagree with that. I think it is a very competitive race, obviously, and there's a whole bunch that I could back. I've sort of looked at Mount Ida. I couldn't quite put myself off that. Deezer Aber, I don't mind that. I like your Time to Get Up. I think that will really like the faster ground. Assuming that it does keep drying out during the week, which I am very much assuming. The one that I sort of thought might be a decent price, though, and a little bit, interesting. Fourth in the race last year, Plan of Attack. Probably hasn't had a great season, but Henry de Bromhead again. And he was saying the other day that the horse is coming back into form, and he sounded quite optimistic. And, obviously everybody likes to bet horses that have run well at Cheltenham before. And I think, given that it was placed in the race last year, I think what price is that, Chief? About 16, 20-1?
20-1. Best
yeah,
price.
I mean, that sounds very fair to me.
Plan of Attack. Okay. Well, that wraps up Thursday. And we move on to the fourth and final day of the festival. And of course, it is Gold Cup Day, which starts with the Triumph Hurdle. And Chief, it's funny how things change with that. We had Adagio, Zanahiyr, and now Tritonic has come storming through on the back of that win at Kempton, and obviously his win at Ascot as well. Is he? How solid is he at the top of the market?
So Tritonic has just become our favourite at 2-1. Zanahiyr is 9-4. Quilixios is 5-1. Adagio 10-1. Auton Couleur 14-1.
Barry, what are your thoughts on this, and how impressed were you by what Tritonic did at Kempton?
I was very impressed with Tritonic. He's rated 99 on the flat. He's a good run over 1.5 miles on soft ground. He jumped well. I thought he jumped. People made Krebs jumping a little bit in Kempton. I thought he was good. He was learning as he went. He was very slick over the two in the straight. No, I like him. I think he's a very good horse. But I do like Zanahiyr as well. I think they're two really good juveniles. And Quilixios is a good horse. He won nicely last time. I think there's a good bit of improvement in his jumping on that run, because he hadn't run since I think it was the end of October before that. So he will benefit from the practice. But no, the top two for me, I think, are probably a little bit ahead of the rest. I like Zanahiyr. I've been riding a lot of his work. I think he's a very good horse, but I would be very afraid of Tritonic. I think they're two really good juveniles. So tricky enough one to call, but I'd stick with Zanahiyr because obviously I have a connection with him. But I'd struggle outside of those two. I think Quilixios has a bit to improve. Adagio improved a good bit to win in Chepstow. He's a lot better than his run behind Duffelcoat and Cheltenham. But I'd have the top two ahead of the field by a good bit.
What about you, Neil? Who do you think?
I think when I first started getting into Cheltenham and watching the races when I was, 13 or something, the Triumph was always like a real kind of minefield, wasn't there? There was always dozens of runners and 50-1 winners and stuff like that. And now obviously we have the Fred Winter, and it doesn't really work like that anymore. It's a proper quality race now. And I think because these two at the front of the betting are so good on paper, on grass as well, I think it's going to cut up quite a bit. I think a lot of horses that, are thinking, should we go for the handicap or should we go for the Triumph? They're much more likely to go for the handicap because these two look, so difficult to beat. So I think it will end up being quite a small field, actually, possibly even less than 8 runners, which is a bit weird, really, for a Triumph hurdle. I don't really like Quilixios that much on this ground. I think it wants a bit of cut in the ground. So I do think it is actually a match. From a betting point of view, it was quite interesting because we had a couple of horses that sort of suddenly did something really impressive, visually impressive. One was Goshen and one was Tritonic on a Saturday in the run-up to Cheltenham. And with both of them, they were instantly cut in the betting and shortened on exchanges straight away. But with Goshen, it kind of drifted back again. Whereas with Tritonic, actually, it turned out that the initial reaction straight away after the race at Kempton wasn't enough because the horse was kind of cut to 4-1. And all it's done since is shorten up even more. Partly, I guess, because of the news in Ireland. Maybe people think that, the Elliott horses are going to be inconvenienced by the situation, especially, if they have to move stable and that kind of thing. I don't know. It feels like Zanahiyr hasn't really got as short as it ought to. I'm a real big fan of Zanahiyr. I think I read somewhere that its time was the best since Our Connor. Our Connor was the best Triumph hurdle winner I ever saw. And I think, if this horse is anywhere near in that league, I think it will win the race. I think it's really hard to beat Zanahiyr, and I'm not going to try and get it beat.
Tritonic for me, though, having listened to everything he said. I love Tritonic. I love his attitude. He looked like he improved mentally, I think. I know he's obviously experienced from the flat, but when he won at Ascot, he seemed a little bit rusty. I know it was his first run for a while, but he looked a lot sharper. And Barry saying a couple of people crabbed the way he jumped, but I think he jumped well. And a couple of times he came off the bridle, but as soon as he was squeezed along by Adrian Heskin, he bounced back on it, and he was hard on the steel again. I think he's got a lot in the tank. It'll be fascinating to see how they go.
By the way, I'm not at all negative about Tritonic. It's much more for me a positive for Zanahiyr. I mean, I think that form at Kempton is really strong. I think the Paul Nicholls horse and the Dan Skelton horse, I think they were 3rd and 4th. Yeah. They both look like really nice horses, and it just looked like a good race. I agree with you. The jumping was people looking to pick a little niggle, wasn't it? I found it quite hard to grab the performance. I just felt like possibly the price shortening was a bit more than I expected on the performance. But I don't. Horses that are visually impressive normally shorten up more than they ought to. And getting onto that bandwagon just after something's been really visually impressive is normally a bad thing to do. But I don't know, it's hard to grab the form.
Well, the next race is not going to make life any easier because it's the county. What's the market saying, Chief?
It's a predictably very open market. This is a race where the shunter, I think, of all the races it's entered in, has been best back for. And is top of the market. So it's the shunter 8-1, Genopathy 8-1, Third Time Lucky 9-1, Blue Lord 8-1. I mean, they're all 9-1, 8-1. Soaring Glory 9-1. Then there's hundreds down below it. So, I mean, good luck picking the winner here. You just have to know who's been. I don't think cheating is the right word, but most economical with their horses.
Well, you've used it, nevertheless. It certainly made me giggle. Barry, what do you like here? I know you've mentioned Blue Lord in passing earlier on. I mean, if he lines up here, Blue Lord for you, perhaps?
No, the shunter would be the obvious one of interest. and he's got the 2 days, the extra few days, as Neil mentioned earlier on. But a horse I like is Fire Attack. I think Joseph O'Brien is going to have a good meeting now. At this stage, we'll have to tip about 5 winners for Joseph and most of the handicaps. But I like Fire Attack. He's about 14 to 1 or so, I think. He had a good run the last time behind the Devil's Coachman, which is a good level of form. And I think he's a horse. He's unexposed. Yeah, for me, Fire Attack. He was a good bumper horse. He has good form at a good level, and I think he's coming into it nicely. So no, I like Fire Attack.
Fire Attack, Neil.
I backed a horse last time out called Third Time Lucky for the Skeltons, and it definitely wasn't lucky because it dragged its hind leg over the final hurdle when it had come there to win and traded ridiculously short in running, and then managed to get beat. But yeah, I mean, the Skeltons have done really well in this race in the past and laid ones out for it. And I think they'll be looking to do that here. So I'm definitely going to have to back that. I do quite like Blue Lord, but I'm not sure it's going to run in this race. There's another one I backed last time out, Edwardstone. It was third in the Betfair Hurdle. I think that this race will be run perfectly for it, given that it's a race where I think, I'm sure Barry knows more about this than me, that it certainly feels like a race where you want to hit the front as you jump not until after you jump the last. I've definitely bet horses in this race before where they've led into the last and I thought, I'm going to at least be in the frame here. And I finished about 14th or something like that. So I think something that really comes late has got to be a good thing. And I think Edwardstone is a real strong traveller. And I think that will be the style of racing for that. So I'm definitely going to look at that. On the stats, you definitely want to have a young horse in this, a 5 or a 6-year-old. Older horses have a very poor record in this race. So I'd bear that in mind as well.
Okay. Right. That's a look at the county hurdle. I mean, I'm at a loss to be certain. I'd love to see Soaring Glory line up for the race. But there's still a little bit of uncertainty as to what he's going to be doing if he indeed goes to the festival. The Albert Bartlett's the next one we're going to take a look at. Chief, have you got any steers according to the market?
I do. I love the potato race, and here we go. At the top of the market, we got Statler at 5 to 1, very solid with all the firms. Then second favourite is Fakira at 13 to 2. I think we're biggest price there. Barbados Bucks 15 to 2, Tory Graph 8 to 1.
Neil, what do you like here?
It really is wide open, isn't it? And last year, this was a fantastic race. I think it's hard to see it being as good a race this year. It probably looks not quite up to the standard, which sort of makes you feel like maybe you should try and back a bigger price one. So I'm sure on the day I'll be looking in that way. I did see a stat that if you just bet all horses who are held up and who finished in the first 3 last time out, you'd have made money over the last 10 years. Just bet every single one. I thought that was quite interesting. Also, if you any horse who's finished in the top 3 in a 3-mile graded hurdle, 6 winners out of 39 qualifiers, and that would be a positive return. It's sort of, I think people bet a lot of horses, don't they, in this race that are sort of promising, young future stayers, and they sort of go for ones that have only run 2 or 3 times and have got a couple of ones by their name. And actually, over the years, you'd be better off betting things that have been to every dance, really. The horses that have run 8 or 9 times in the season actually do all right in the Albert Bartlett. So I guess that's the sort of way I'm looking. There's been a lot of money for Kira in the run-up to the race. That was about 20 to 1 2 weeks ago, and it's only 7 to 1 now. I sort of like that. I don't know whether I've missed the boat with it slightly. I know the Nichols people really like Barbados Bucks, and that's been quite well backed. That was 20 to 1. I think Tony Calvin wrote something tipping it up at 25 to 1, and now it's kind of 7 to 1. So You know, I think they really like that. I wouldn't put anyone off, but I guess we've missed the boat there. I haven't had a bet yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm definitely going to look for something that's. I think you get good place terms on the day on this race as well. You often get 4 places, which is quite a good benefit to punters. So it's probably one I'm going to wait for the day.
Okay, Barry, send us in the right direction.
I'd agree with a lot of Neil said. It's not the strongest renewal. I think it's very open, and it's a race in those circumstances can be won by one, but at a bigger price. And also, horses have been to every dance, and because it's such an attritional race, you know, that hardened experience, I think, really stands the horses. So a horse I do like is 3 under through 5. He's a winner of his last 4. He won in Musselburgh last time. You wouldn't expect an Albert Bartlett winner to be impressive on a track like Musselburgh because obviously such a sharp place. But he won. He got the job done. I think he's going to be a lot better for the stiff track that it is Cheltenham on the new course for this race. So for me, he's won. He's about 16 to 1. Or what price, Chief? What price do you have him?
We have him at 16 to 1.
Yeah, I think he's a good solid each way bet in what's a wide open race. I think the top 2, Statler and Fakira and Barbados Books for that matter, they're not of a very high standard. I think they're very beatable, and it's going to be wide open. So I think 3 under through 5 is a horse who's maybe not fully exposed. He's been to a few dances. He's on the improve. He's a winner of his last 4. I don't see much wrong with him.
Okay, I do like Barbados Bucks only because I think he keeps a little bit up his sleeve. And I think he's got more to offer. I don't think we've seen, like a lot of them, we haven't seen the best of him, but I think he needs to be hard pressed for his best to be delivered. Okay, the big one on the final day, the Gold Cup is the next race.
I thought you were going to say the Mayor's Chase then, Rishi.
I know you keep referring to it, but you know, you did sign the petition a number of times. We did work that out. But the big race, the Gold Cup, a race, Barry, you won it twice. Is that right?
Yeah.
And in fairness, if you were still riding, it's quite possible that a lot of people would fancy you to win it for a 3rd time because Barry's, or the horse that he rode in such dramatic circumstances, Champ last year, is near the top of the market, Chief.
Champ is second favourite, 9 to 2. I'd love to know if Barry thought he was going to win with 100 yards to go last year. Albin Photo going 3 times in a row for the 3-peat, 5 to 2. A Plus Tard 11 to 2. Santini 12 to 1. Milena Indo 11 to 1. There's loads with chances. I mean, the list goes on actually.
So Barry, well, let's start with you. Answer, if you don't mind, Chief's question about when you thought you were going to win on Champ last year, and what are his chances this year?
I'd say I knew before 100 yards. I was 3 lengths down, so whatever stage I was 3 lengths down, I knew he was in the bag at that stage. So yeah, he was bombing home. I knew at the back of the last I had a squeak. I hadn't gone for everything, so he finished well, but he was a different horse in Newbury. If you asked me pulling up in Cheltenham, if you said to me, this fella, his next race, he's going to win a 2-mile chase in Newbury against seasoned horses on reasonably good ground, I'd say you're on drugs. So his performance, it probably was a little bit unorthodox, and it might cause as many questions as answers. He proved in Cheltenham last season in the RSA how well he stayed, but his run over 2 miles potentially could just light him up and make him a little bit keen. His jumping was far better in Newbury than it was at any stage last season. So they've done a lot of work on that. He spent time at Henrietta Night. Nicky does a lot of work at home himself with it. So I think the horse is in great terms with himself. But the only slight negative is if the 2 mile run has just lit him up a little bit. But it's going to be run at a good gallop. You've got Native River there. You have Frodon might go on as well. There's plenty of pace. So I think Album Photo is a worthy favourite. You could maybe question last year's form, but he won off a slow pace, and for me he was the best horse on the day. I think Santini has an each way chance. He got lost in the horrible ground in Sandown. His run last year in a Storm race, another 50 yards he might have got up, you could say. I think a strong run race would have suited him, so he's got a chance. I do like, obviously if I was to ride one, I'd be riding Champ. If I was riding Champ, I would fancy Champ. But it's tricky enough. Album Photo, you're taking it on trust really, but he holds the highest level of form. I think A Plus Tard for me, he just lacks a little bit of class. Manila Indo, I think, wants it soft. So I'd be down to Santini for an each way shout. Champ the Danger and Album Photo, the one to beat.
All right. I like the Santini shout as well. What about you, Neil?
Well, I can't believe you banged on about last year's RSA. Some of us, our whole week was built around Manila Indo. So, thanks, Barry. Cheers for that. Yeah, I'm a big A Plus Tard fan. I've always been a big A Plus Tard fan. When it won the handicap here a few years ago, and I was on it last year when it was second in the Ryanair. I've backed the horse a couple of times this year. I don't have a doubt about the stamina. I think that's fine. The younger horses coming here, people always, it's a grueling race. We remember the times where Gold Cup winners have never done anything since. And we say, the Gold Cup is a race that leaves its mark and, you really need to stay. But actually, this is going to be a fairly fast ground Gold Cup. And I think young horses that haven't been over the trip have historically, coming here, to, trying that extra distance for the first time, have done okay. And so I don't have a problem about the stamina. It's possible A Plus Tard won't be good enough. I think actually the favourite, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like Album Photo, it's like 5-2 or whatever. Yeah. I remember coming as a bookmaker to Cheltenham and making a book in the Silver Ring when Best Mate was running. And, you get the chance to lay this 2 times winner at kind of even money or whatever. Why should a 2-time winner be bigger than even money, really? I mean, it seems kind of mad, really. I definitely don't want to be laying Album Photo or particularly be against it, but I probably won't back it. I have a bit of a thing about Manila Indo, and I have backed that horse a couple of times. I think it's going to be hard for me not to back that. I think horses like Native River and Royal Pagaille, the ground will just be too fast. I couldn't really have them. Paul Nicholls was saying in that thing I was listening to that I keep going on about, he couldn't believe that Frodon was not much shorter than Santini. He sort of said, look, we thrashed it last time in a King George, a race that traditionally throws up, horses that run well in the Gold Cup. Why should we not be much shorter than Santini? And that is a fairly compelling argument, I think. Although I don't really want to back Frodon. Maybe I just think Santini should be bigger. And Champ, I thought it was a bit of a crazy plan last time. Didn't think it had any chance at Newbury, and then obviously it ran really well. So you can't take that away from it. I wouldn't want to back it at sort of 5-1 though for this race. That wouldn't be one for me. I thought Vindication actually would be, if I was looking for a real outsider to play each way. Kim Bailey's horses are running really well this year, and I'm not against that idea. I think I'll definitely throw some money at that. But yeah, I think my main bet would be A Plus Tard.
Okay. I think with Native River being in the race and Frodon, I think 2 years ago when Native River last ran in the race, it was a significantly quicker Gold Cup than it was last year. Obviously, Album Photo won it last year, but they were a bit more bunched together. And a horse like Santini in last year's race was disadvantaged by the way the race was run, I felt. And this year, with Native River back in the Gold Cup, I'm expecting with he and Frodon to go on, it's going to be a race where stamina is going to play. So the 2 horses that I was quite interested in were Champ and Santini, because I felt coming up that hill, if they go the pace that I expect them to with Native River and Frodon in the race, it's going to be a stamina test. And the likes of Santini and perhaps Champ might get involved in the race late in the day. That would be how I would view the Gold Cup. But no doubt I'm probably wrong. And Album Photo is going to win it for the 3rd time, and he's going to join the likes of Best Mate, Arkle, Golden Miller as a 3-time or more Gold Cup winner. So what a great history that is for him. The Fox Hunters, one of 3 races left to preview at this year's festival. You were talking earlier on, Neil, about people telling you about horses or stats and stuff like that. Well, Fox Hunters is not my speciality, and I'm sure if there are other people who would tell you they know a lot more about me than many things. But one of my friends, who is a real Fox Hunter special, is waxing lyrical about the chances of Bob and Co in this race, and says that he is as close as certainty at the festival this year as there is. And I said, what about Monkfish and things like that? He said, more than Monkfish. He, in terms of his credentials for the Fox Hunters this year, Bob and Co is by far away the best. So any support for Bob and Co, or are you going elsewhere, Neil?
I must admit, it isn't a thing that I'm anything an expert on. But come the day, I would say that they almost always, the bookmakers, offer 4 places on the Fox Hunters. And normally, and I think the market looks a bit, you can confirm, Chief, I normally you end up with about 7 horses less than 33 to 1. And you can get 4 places as if it's a really competitive handicap, which it obviously isn't. So it is very advantageous race to play each way in. And I normally end up, it sounds a bit boring, actually. I know a lot of my betting is quite boring. I normally end up betting like 3 of the first 4 in the betting each way at 4 places, and just hope to get, either the winner and 1 other in the frame, or 3 in the frame, and make a profit that way. And I guess I'll probably do the same this year. And I'm sure Bob and Co will be one of them. You've made it sound quite exciting. The one I looked at a big price was Paul Bay, which is ridden by I don't know. I guess it won't be ridden by Will Biddick, I guess. I think it's his horse anyway. I don't know. I haven't really heard anything about it in the run up, but I know it wants really fast ground. I just thought maybe that might be worth looking for on that basis. But I don't know. I see it's drifted in the betting a bit. Maybe it's not going to run. Maybe I just missed that news. I would say I'm no expert on the Fox Hunters, though.
Barry, Fox Hunters, what do you reckon? We're not celebrating a Gold Cup winner this time of the day.
Yeah, it looks like we don't have an expert amongst us, unless your friend who tipped you, Bob and Co, is an expert. If he is someone whose opinion you would rate, you'd have to take note of that. Billy Way is the favourite. I thought maybe it could be value each way and Staker Wallace. But you'd have to take note if your man knows what he's talking about.
Well, I definitely acquiesce to him on that. Right, 2 races to go, Chief. The Mare's Chase. I'm just teasing Neil by holding him back because he's been waiting since the start of this preview to talk about the Mare's Chase. What's the market saying? Another one for Willie Mullins?
Do we have to cover this race? We may as well go on to, the Martin Pike. So the market here is LMA 13 to 8, although there is some 7 to 4 about. We are 3 to 1 Colrevy, Shattered Love 7 to 1, Annie Mac 8 to 1, and then 16 bars.
Right, Neil, away you go. This is your moment.
Well, I don't mean to kind of slag off the race. It's just that I would like more handicaps basically at Cheltenham. I like that stuff about Royal Ascot having a bunch more handicaps. So anything you can do to have more handicaps. I don't really want an extra day of the meeting. I just want them to swap a few races for more handicaps. But this has turned out to be a really good betting race, having said all of that. I sort of was looking at, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the favourite, LMA. I think the form is really strong. It's quite interesting. If Allaho wins the Ryanair, then Ellie May, by definition, must shorten up because it's got contingent form. So actually, that's quite a good sneaky bet you can have. Have a double Allaho and Ellie May, because if Allaho has won by the time this race is run, then Ellie May will surely go off shorter. So if you do like Allaho, you should probably do a double with Ellie May. But I'm going to go against Ellie May just because, we're getting a bit of a price if you do that. And I like Shattered Love. It's a Gordon Elliott mare, and I really like her. I've always liked her. She tends to sort of come late and stay on. She's been beaten by the favourite before. I think I backed her actually against Ellie May last time out. I would say she was kind of beaten fair and square, but they will finish quite close together. There's not much between them, although Ellie May is probably better. Jessica Harrington's Magic of Light is also interesting, and I could bet that, I guess. But I think really the main target there is the Grand National, and I sort of wonder whether maybe it might run a promising race and finish 3rd or 4th, but I actually think Shattered Love's got a real chance of winning. and that will be my main bet. I don't. That'll be quite a strong bet each way here.
Okay, well, I'm joining you. I like Shattered Love. A few years ago, obviously, she won the JLT. She beat Cabaret Queen a couple of starts back, and then was behind Ellie May. I think she's got a good chance back over the distance. Barry, what about you?
I think Ellie May is going to be very hard to beat. She won nicely last day in Naas on very soft ground. To me, she looks like she'd be better for nicer ground and open trip. So I think she's a worthy favourite. She'd be hard to beat. Cool Reevy, I would feel once is very soft. So I think it's going to be a bit good for her. I would agree with Neil on Magic of Light, having a squeak and a little bit of value maybe. And also Augusta Gold, whose form ties in with Ellie May. Now, she has a bit to find with Ellie May, but it's her first run for Willie, having come from Mags Mullins. And Mags is a good trainer, but obviously Willie is Willie. So I think that's one of note. It's nice seeing at the weights as well. So she's got to a good level in her form. So Augusta Gold could be of interest each way.
And so we move to the final race, Chief. It's the Martin Pipe, as you correctly called it. And again, Willie Mullins with horses at the top of the market.
So, we've got Gentleman to Me 11-2, wide receiver, Neil being an NFL expert, 8-1, Ganapathy 13-2, the Shunter again 10-1, Champagne Gold 12-1, Monte Cristo 12-1. I mean, again, the list goes on. There's some that are entered in multiple races here, like Ali Philippe, etc.
Okay, Barry, what's going to win the Martin Pipe?
That is a very good question. Not a straightforward race because you're backing jockeys as much as anything. A horse who I had, like, he disappointed last time in Leopardstown is Gabinaco. Now he's got a Conor McNamara riding him, who's a very good rider. And I think that's a big positive. But he disappointed last time, beating 18 lengths. His form prior to that is good. In Naas, he was third in the Bob Ollinger race. He ran well behind Ashley Bob in Navan. So it's a tricky race. I would take a punt each way on Gabinaco to return to form. As I say, with a very good rider in Conor Brazen, or Conor McNamara, should I say.
Okay, good shout. Neil?
This is one of this and the Boodles are I find the two toughest handicaps of the week, because the weights are so compressed. It makes it so difficult, doesn't it? They're all, they've all got a bit tucked up their sleeve generally. I had a massive bet last year, anti-post, on a horse called Front View of Joseph's. And I backed it at 10-1, and I had more slips than Malcolm Marshall. And it got backed into 4-1 favourite for this race. Didn't run very well. They're still running, I think. They tried going chasing with it this year, and that didn't really work out. And now it's back to hurdles for this. 4-1 last year, and 20-1, 25-1, Chief?
It's 25-1 general, actually, Neil. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got to bet that. I think I'll be annoyed if that wins at 25-1 when I think about how much money I had on it last year. And we've spoken several times. Barry's already said Joseph's going to have 6 winners, so this can really top off a week for him. I think that will be one of mine. I mean, there's a whole bunch of horses you could back here. I think it's a really hard race. I'm sure I'm going to have many more hours studying it in the days to come, but I think Front View will definitely be top of my list.
And I'm sure that the view on the race will change between now and in the leading hours leading up to the final race on the Friday. So we've been through every one of the 28 races over the 4 days, and we just have time for a few questions. I'm just going to ask a few questions to the panel, and then we'll close things off with the Chief. So we've narrowed it down to just these 4 questions. So I'll start off with this one. Barry, which horse will you miss riding most at this year's festival?
Take a pick between Epatant and Champ. Probably Epatant. But I'd be very happy if I was to ride one horse. Give me the choice. I'd be happy either of those.
Okay, fair enough. Right, Neil, I'll ask you this one. Who's a more likely future Gold Cup winner, Envoy Allen or Monkfish?
Oh, that has to be Monkfish, I guess, doesn't it? I mean, they're both beautiful horses, aren't they? yeah, I think Monkfish.
Okay. You, Barry?
I'd agree with Neil. I think both two superstars, but Environ has so much pace. I just wonder, would he stay as far when he has as much pace as he has, where you don't have that issue with Monkfish? So I'd go with Monkfish.
Okay, and the last couple of questions. A lay of the week for the panel. Neil, what would you like to lay?
Well, I guess it has to be Easy's Lands, really, and not because I don't like it. I really like the horse, and I was on it when it won the race so impressively. But I think if the ground is faster, I'd have to be against it. Yeah, I mean, I know I spoke about the equine herpes issue and it maybe even being a non-runner on that. I don't think it will be a non-runner. I just think you get that as a sort of free bonus if you have an each way bet against it right now. But no, the main reason I want to be against it is because I think the ground will not be suitable for it.
All right, Barry, your lay of the week. Honeysuckle. Okay. I know this might be ridiculous, but I'm going to chuck in Chacun pour soi. For all sorts of things that probably have no relevance whatsoever. But I also think, most importantly, there are some good horses in Altior. I like Nuba Negra. So yeah, I'll chuck in Chacun pour soi. And now to the banker of the week for the panel, and that includes you, Chief. I'm going to ask you. I'll come to you last because after the banker, you can wrap up the details with all the offers, etc. Barry, the banker of this year's Cheltenham Festival is
Monkfish.
Neil, your banker of the week?
Oh dear. I don't really do bankers. I normally have like 100 bets a day. I mean, it's a silly one. I know it sounds strange one of the biggest bets I'll have this week will be Captain Guinness each way.
Captain Guinness.
There's a big price banker.
Why not? Paisley. But I've given about 5 different bankers already, so somewhere along the lines I've got it right. But I'm going Paisley Park in the stairs for me. Chief, what's your banker of the week?
Champion Hurdle, Epatante. Stick with festival form. Ignore the last run.
Nice.
I'll tell you what. If Epatante wins, it's good news for Barry because all of those sets of breeches that he's got, well, they'll all go up in value.
Which leads us perfectly on, Chief, to just a brief reminder of what new clients and obviously current Sporting Index clients can take advantage of.
Yes, just to repeat again, for new clients, we've got a £50 promo cash we'll put in your account. You keep what you win. Any losses over 50 quid are your liability, and losses, obviously, with spread betting can exceed your deposit. For new fixed odds clients, we're giving a free £25 fixed odds bet. All you have to do is place 5 fixed odds bets, minimum £5 at market odds of 1 to 2 or above. And once the 5th bet settles, we'll give you that £25 free bet. There will be loads of trading offers, extra places on the spreads, as well as there'll be amazing offers on match bets, the whole lot. But 2 trading offers at the moment. We've got Epatante to win the Champion Hurdle, which obviously I've told you is a banker, and Champ to win the Gold Cup 25-1, and Sire de Burley to place in the Sayers Hurdle at 6-4, which I think Neil thought was quite good value. Don't forget, got Barry's Breaches competition, and that will be live on our social media channels on Sunday. Apart from that, enjoy having a sober festival for most of you this year.
Chief, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you alongside the panel today. And Neil, thank you as well.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Yeah, you too. I hope it's a dirty festival for you. I hope it's down.
Well, it'll be bad for you, Rishi, having to cover Cheltenham because there's no chance of it all being finished after 2 days.
let's not get. You just never know in the current climate we're in, do you? You just never know. So let's not predict anything like that. Barry, I'll miss not seeing you on the racecourse this year at the Cheltenham Festival because, of course, 12 months ago, absolutely sensational. To spare your blushes, it was just wonderful watching you ride. You know, genuinely, I know you've heard these sort of things before, but it was a masterclass watching you do your stuff over the 4 days of the festival last year. And thank you very much for being with us on the panel. It might be slightly awkward for you watching this year, I'm sure, as different jockeys riding in your silks. But hopefully you'll be able to enjoy it with all those Joseph O'Brien winners that you've tipped in the handicaps. So thank you.
We'll probably have more bets than normal this year, Barry.
Me, I never was a punter. I've 3 small bets just for interest. But no, a bit of fun. But I'm looking forward to it. And no, I had a good time when I was doing it, so it's time to move on. But thank you very much, Rishi. You're very kind, and thank you, Chief, and thank you, Neil, for an enjoyable night.
Certainly has been enjoyable. So best of luck to you and to everyone for the 2021 Cheltenham Festival.